honestly, I'd never throw a rubric at them.
Hmm.
Um, they might not see a rubric for most of the stuff every year, and they'll say, "Hey, why don't we get a rubric?" I literally have had this question last week. Mr. H, why don't we get a rubric for these? And I say, okay, I'm going to give you a rubric. If I give you a rubric,
That was Michael Haughwout, and this is Dragonfly Conversations. I'm your host, Kevin Madison, and through my work with Project Dragonfly, I get to share the inspiring stories of everyday people making a real difference in conservation and education. Today, Michael shares how to treat his science class like a choose your own adventure. He is a high school science teacher who uses Dungeons and Dragons dice, local field work with diamondback terrapins and microplastics, and a no rubrics philosophy to engage his students. We talk about neurodiversity, creativity, and how to keep the spark of inquiry alive. Let's get right into it.
it was a jump off. I mean, I had been doing a lot of getting students to do hands-on work, research, starting a STEM institute for a school that I originally started at, and kind of falling into Dragonfly and seeing what Dragonfly offered and kind of how they did that. And taking it a step further. And yeah, I've got to say one of the biggest influences that Dragonfly's had on me is kind of that ability to take all that research that might be like so out of reach for some kids, and you start the year and say, hey guys, well, what is a scientist? You guys tell me what a scientist is. And they're identifying people in lab coats and people that have degrees and people that are specialists in subject areas, and they don't view themselves as scientists at all, which is what I think is really kind of terrible and a disservice that we do to kids out there. And I took a step back and really looked at it a problem as the kids stop wondering at a point. You know, the
Hmm.
kids just stop saying, "I wonder," and they stop getting excited about things. Somewhere along the way, we kind of tell them to stop asking questions and just sit quiet and follow along and not really wonder. And
Right.
really, Dragonfly kind of helped prompt that. Well, let's fix that. Let's get the I wonder. And one of the big things that Dragonfly has really helped me do and really helped me develop is actually just presented at the National Biology Teachers Conference in St. Louis, was on student integrated research and student choice learning. So I've kind of taken the idea of, hey, this is what we need to teach and how we should teach it, and said, you know what, let's forget that. What do they want to learn? What do they
Right.
want to learn, and how do they want to learn it? And let's mold the curriculum around that.
So is your classroom, I just like want to envision what your classroom is like. Like I know we've talked about diamondback terrapins and bottom dwelling fish and microplastics. I mean, and
Yeah.
and are the students choosing these of their own, interest, or is it you kind of
Yeah.
give the spark and they go with it?
So they kind of know that I'm in the world of doing some research and doing the work with terrapins and doing work with whale sharks out in Bahia. And they get excited. I mean, they come in excited and they come in wanting to ask questions. And I almost kind of think there's this like cloud that follows me around of, oh, we need to really impress Mr. Hauout, and we really got to be on our A games. And my first thing that I need to do is like, hey guys, I'm a regular person. I'm
Hmm.
nothing special. There's nothing special here. Everything that I do, everyone else can do, right? There's no reason why you can't. And and it gets a little bit behind, and we play a little catch up during the year, but I feel it's important. Where I start out with the kids is actually what got me into Dragonfly initially. I did a teachers in conservation workshop with the San Diego Zoo Conservation Park, and they're actually the ones that introduced me to Dragonfly and kind of said, hey, here's this inquiry kind of based lesson. And really what we start the year with is I make them watch animal webcams at the beginning of the year. And I say, hey, like, what do you guys notice? Like, what do you want to, what is an interest? Cool. Let's come up with a question. What's a question? Let's do a comparative question. Cool. Can we collect data on this? Great. Let's collect data. And we can analyze this data. Cool. Let's run some stats. And these are not, all AP environmental kids or AP biology kids that I'm doing this with. Some of these are kids that are struggling, and it's just kind of walking them through that process. And then literally the next lesson I say is, hey, I want you guys to write down 5 things you're interested in. Just 5 things you're interested in. I don't care if it's science. I don't care what it is. What are you interested in? And then I say, okay, great. Now I want you to take, and we got 1 minute. You got 1 minute. You look at those 5 topics. 1 minute, I want you to see what is that? What is something on this list that stands out to you so much that why do you love it? Which one of these do you absolutely love? And they choose a topic, and then I'm going to say, great. What I want you to do, and after we look at how to do research and use Google Scholar and research databases and how to find good articles. And it's like, great, you've got a topic that you like. And now there's got to be something in this topic that's debated. There's definitely something in this topic that's debated. And some kids talk about like, yeah, I'm a catcher for baseball, and it's really debated about, what stance you should use to catch, if you catch for baseball. It's like, great, that's awesome. Perfect. Let's find some information. What I want you to find conflicting arguments on this, and good reliable information, and let's write a little paper on it. Just write a little paper on it. And they write these little papers, so I trick them into writing a synthesis paper. And they do all collect all this data and on both sides of the argument. I'm like, great, now like what are your ideas? Now that you looked at both sides of the argument, I don't want to know what the opinion says. I want to know what does the research and what does the data say. And they come up with it. And I say, great, cool. Now this is a topic that you really like and you really know, and you've looked at all these sides of the arguments. And I never tell them all the parts of the project. And I say, cool. Now, from where you're sitting, I want you to come up with let's just a little presentation. You got 2 minutes. 2 minutes, I want you to tell us about your topic, what you learned. You can do any kind of presentation you want. You want to do little cardboard cutouts? Perfect. You want to make a PowerPoint? Great. Do you want to pre-record something? You want to write a song? Great. But tell us about what you learned. And then tell us about what you learned. And then I kind of turn around and say, that's great. Let's really kind of hone that in. Can you make a lesson? Let's make a 15-minute activity that really drives home the point. And let's come up with it. Let's come up with an activity and really drive it home. And then they come up with these little activities and then tie it into the curriculum. So we can take something like stance in baseball and we can say, great, now let's look at the physiology of it, and let's work that into mechanics, and let's work that into energy expenditure, and sure, we'll drive that back to ATP and whatever we need to drive it into. But it's something that I can draw on an interest and get them excited about. And really, yeah, I've gotten some great projects over the years of just their pure curiosity. I've had a group of kids that said, wow, we're in New Jersey, and fire ecology, there was a forest fire. And why is that? Why do we have these forest fires? And they looked into fire ecology of New Jersey and ended up doing this amazing lesson where they went out and collected various pine cones from different parts of the area and did a whole lesson on serotiny of pine cones. I had a student that is neurodivergent, and she was looking at how AI can better assist and better assist people's knowledge of what neurodivergency is. And so she did this whole lesson on her type of neurodivergency and what AI can simulate and do neurodivergency. And the kids who didn't really understand what she was experiencing, she did this whole lesson on what she was interested in and what related to her life. And now these kids are understanding like what she goes through, and she's making better connections. And now these kids understand parts of things like neurodivergency and also AI use, which is becoming a really big thing. So I mean, these are lessons that they're tailoring and they're creating, and they're learning about each other, and they're learning about the subject, and they're excited about it. And I'll tell you what, since I've been doing this, the excitement that they get for those first initial lessons grabs them. And I can sit there and I can then talk to, if I talk to them about, for 30 straight minutes on something
Mm.
like osmosis and diffusion or like, active transport or passive they they sit there and they are so engrossed in the lesson, and they are just grabbed, and they are just all in it. And these are kids of all different levels. These are kids that have had um, that could have education issues, IEPs, 504s. These, honestly, I'd never throw a rubric at them.
Mm.
um, they might not see a rubric for most of the stuff every year, and they'll say, hey, why don't we get a rubric? I literally have had this question last week. Mr. H, why don't we get a rubric for these? And I say, okay, let me give you a rubric. If I give you a rubric, and if I give you an example of a piece of work, and I say, hey, this are kids that could have behavioral issues, and they sit there and they are excited about science again because they had the chance to wonder. And so, going back to it's really that whole idea in Dragonfly that, hey, everyone can be a scientist. Anyone can be a scientist. Like, if you want this, we're going to support you. We can help you do it. You can get there. You're going to make it what you want it to. It's going to be what you want to make it. And we can all be excited about this. And they finally have that chance to be a scientist that I wonder again. And they also have that chance to be a kid and learn that it's okay to make the mistakes and it's okay to be wrong. And one of the things that I do with this project too, with a lot of projects, is I honestly, I never throw a rubric at them.
Mm.
Um, they might not see a rubric for most of the stuff every year, and they'll say, hey, why don't we get a rubric? I literally have had this question last week. Mr. H, why don't we get a rubric for these? And I say, okay, let me give you a rubric. If I give you a rubric, and if I give you an example of a piece of work, and I say, hey, this is an example of an A. This project got 100. Tell them, what are you going to hand me? You going to hand me this project? You going to hand me something similar to this
Mm.
project? You're going to
Hmm.
do what this rubric tells you is going to be 100. If I give you something, you're going to mimic that. And I said, yeah, I would do the same thing. I'm in that same boat. Why am I going to do more than what that 100 is? If I give them that opportunity of say, I want you to be, and I tell them, I want you to be proud of what you turn into me. Do you feel like this is the best thing that you can turn in? And there's different, for me, I'm a very empathetic teacher. It's a kid's going to come to me. I want a kid to come to me and say, hey, Mr. H, I'm really bogged down. I'm really stressed. I got X, Y, and Z going on at home. I got X, Y, and Z going on in this part of my life. I got all these papers due. I got a big test coming up, and I'm really stressed. I want them to come to me and say, like, hey, I need a day. Can I just have one more day? And I'll say, yeah, you know what? Why don't you take 3? Why don't you
Mm.
take 3? I want you to turn into me what you're going to be happy with. I don't want you to turn into me what you're going to rush. I want you to turn in what's going to be happy, what's going to make you less stressed. And I feel like that, creating that safe environment where they feel like they can be an advocate for themselves and be safe and turning what in like good work, it build that relationship. And when then I ask them, like, I want you to turn in something that you're proud of. I want you to turn in what you think is an A. And if I keep telling you this is what an A is, you're never going to reach. You're never going to want to do more. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to do more. I want you to push. I want you to tell me this is 100. I put everything into this. And I'll tell you what, since I've stopped handing out rubrics, the work quality I get is is so much more than it ever was before that. So
Interesting. And probably, yeah, a lot more variable and keeps keeps it more interesting for
it
you.
does.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like listening to you. It's like so much passion I can hear from you, and the fact that you are so excited about listening to the kids and wanting them to share how they're doing and wanting them to come up with their questions. It makes sense that they want to listen to you in return. I mean, I'm curious though, like, have you always had this teaching philosophy? Did you have it when you started teaching? Has it changed through time?
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about my teaching origin. So I didn't always want to be a teacher. Now I always loved science, and I always loved, the environmental science. Always loved zoology. I love science. Growing up, I loved it. I was that kid that was always outside picking up rocks and had my own little rock collection, and finding little things, little trinkets in the woods to carry home. Yeah, I grew up in southern New Jersey in maritime forest. So we were a pine forest that was butted up right against the bay. Um, it was a nice barrier island, and I spent all my time growing up in the woods and drinking from a hose, you know. Um, and so I always loved it, and science always came easy to me. It was always the easy subject. I loved it. I have an older brother and a younger sister. My sister was always into the sports and kind of doing the creative thing. My brother was super musically inclined and really great with math and language arts, and I fell into the sciences and I love the sciences. I grew up watching all those little kid science shows. I'll date myself and say I grew up watching Mr. Wizard before Bill Nye. So um, but like that's what I did, and that was great until I hit my eighth grade year. My eighth grade year was a physical science, so it was introductory chemistry, introductory physics, and my science teacher that year didn't really kind of have that philosophy I did, and I struggled. I really struggled. I didn't really understand chemistry. I didn't really understand physics. It was all brand new stuff to me, and so I struggled quite a bit. And it came to the end of the year where we had this big solar oven competition, and we're all outside, and all these classes, tons of solar ovens,
Hmm.
lined up out in the courtyard, and we're making cookie dough. And it's this big competition that the school runs. It was sponsored by the local nuclear power plant. And he's going around and he's asking each of us, "Hey, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And he comes to me and says, "Hey, Mike, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I told him, I said, I really love science, and I really want to do something with science when I grow up. And he told me, well, you're not really that good at science. Maybe you should pick something else.
Hmm.
And it crushed me. It devastated me. Um, it killed me, and I turned away from science for quite a while. Um, I was going music for a long period of time. I had a good music background, so I was thinking, well, I have this great music teacher. I really enjoy music. My brother's going music. I think maybe I'll go, have do music. I'll go or play in an orchestra. I'll do that kind of thing. And I ended up actually winning that solar oven contest, and
Oh, really?
yeah, I got a plaque, and I think you purposely spelled my last name wrong on it, but uh, I came to my senior year and applying for schools, and I had this phenomenal biology and marine science teacher, and she really, saw I was kind of holding back on a lot of science, and she came in and really supported that. And she was like, "I see this passion in you, and I see that you really have this love for biology and this love for the environment, and you should support that." And it took me, I had these two phenomenal teachers in my lifetime, my second grade teacher and my senior year teacher,
Hmm.
and they really supported that. And I kind of said, there needs to be more of that in the world and kind of less of what he did. So I decided to uh go into education, and I dual majored in biology and education. And I started teaching, and I literally keep for 18 years. So I'm in my 18th year of teaching, and I keep that plaque in my classroom. Every single classroom I've been in, that plaque sits in the back of my room across from where I teach. And it's my reminder of, you know, there's times you're going to be frustrated teaching, and there's times you're going to want to, brush a kid off. But it's my reminder of, they might need that support, and, they might not fully understand they might not fully understand, and they might need your patience, and they might need you there for so many more things than to just teach a subject. So it's my
Right.
reminder. I keep that in my
What's
year
what's the
in my
plaque?
rearview mirror.
Is it the solar?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
solar oven plaque. Yeah.
I
So they
love that.
asked me, they're like, what is this solar oven plaque from 1998? It's like, and a lot of them don't even realize it. They don't even see it. It's kind of tucked away in a corner, but it's directly where I can see it, every single day. So, for 18 years, I've been looking at that plaque, and it kind of
Wow.
keeps me in that direction of be there for the kids, be there for the kids and be there for the subject, and that's the important part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, we've all had these moments in our lives, these formative experiences for good or for bad. And the fact that you took that one as, it was difficult, but you have taken it to be a motivation to be a positive force for these kids. For your 18 years of teaching, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Uh, um, So yeah, so when you first were starting teaching, were you doing a lot of inquiry based and student driven projects initially from the very start?
Yeah, from the start, I started teaching in a school where they didn't have time for labs, and they didn't have a budget for labs. So, first year teacher, I was doing whatever I could to go out and buy lab supplies and coming in and running labs with kids. And we were in the classroom setting up aquaponics and um, setting up, doing, different types of experiments that I was running as a freshman in college. I was like, well, let's do some of these experiments. Let's get out there and let's get these hands on things. And right from the get go, I kind of introduced a science fair project to them, and we kind of hit the ground running with hey, let's do a little bit of investigation and let's do some science, a science fair research, and kind of took it from there. But yeah, since the beginning, and then I was working in the same district. I was taught in high school for a year, and then took a full-time opening in the middle school and went down to the middle school. And was and that's kind of where I got my where I got my kind of kick in the backside of, hey, you're not great at science. And this it was so it's such a pivotal time in their lives of like you can still keep them and grab them on that subject. You can still keep them excited. And I took that and started we started a STEM academy in the middle school where they joined it in the middle school, and we were doing builds, and we were building like various things, and I was teaching them how to blueprint, and we were showing how to set up design. So we took the regular curriculum and just did this whole what are you interested thing. And yeah, it started it off right there. um, and anything new and exciting I could throw at them, it was let's do it. And it took off, and it developed into these kind of small little projects. Noticing a group of girls I had in my class who were kind of quiet. They weren't jumping in. And after class, they were like, "Oh, this is really great. It's really fun. Kind of don't know really what I'm doing," and got to talking to them, and they were shy about using power tools. Some of them came from single parent homes, and they didn't really have anyone that was like kind of showing them the ropes on things. And it was like, well, do you guys really want to learn how to do this stuff? Why don't you tell me when you're free after school, what days you're free? I will make time, and hey, let's learn how to use some of these tools, and let's do projects. And we built and we started this little club of girls in STEM. And we did this with girls in STEM, this women in STEM thing, and they came in and learned how to use tools, and we built hovercrafts and raced them around the school in the afternoon, and we were doing all these big, large scale projects. And a lot of these kids that I had 17, 18 years ago, I still hear from constantly. And, they're still reaching out about terrapins and doing terrapin work. And, I'll maybe be in the town at one point and I'll see a parent that's like, they went into STEM, they went into engineering, or they're working on their PhD, or it's a
Wow.
lot of these great things that I'm hearing from these kids. And I'll get random emails, years and years later of, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I love the subject because this is I learned to love it when I had you as a teacher, and I never let that go, and so they're still doing it. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it just seems like the sense I just get is you have a lot of energy and positivity, and I don't know, I feel like teaching it can really drain people, but I'm sure there's like you have rough days
Yeah.
too, I'm sure, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely the rough days. It's education. So, we're dealing with stuff on the state level or administration, explaining, having to explain to administration of, why I'm doing the crazy things that I'm doing, and why am I bringing my kids? Why am I walking the kids a half mile down the road to the an estuary to take sediment samples and water quality samples, and go collect, do species analysis, and like, why are we doing all this? Is that in the curriculum? And I said, well, it ties in. Why don't you come with me? And getting the no, we've got meetings and we can't make it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, but if you really want to know what I'm doing, come and visit. So yeah, there's this stuff that's disheartening. There's always going to be that stuff that's disheartening, but um, y I kind of look at it in the same way that everyone's looking at climate change. You can either turn a blind eye to it, or you can kind of listen to all the naysayers and be disheartened by the whole process, or you can um, you know, just look out at these kids that just want to soak this up and just look at the world in this new way. And you could support that. So, as an educator, sometimes you got to take the hit. Sometimes it's the educator that takes that emotional impact, that emotional damage, and to save a kid from that. And
Hmm.
it's hard sometimes. It's definitely hard, but it being an advocate for a kid, I think, is in its own way a major reward. So as much as the disheartening things are going to come and the rough days are going to come, you got that reward of a kid that turns around and says, "You changed, this changed my life,"
Yeah.
or "I really love this subject," or I really found something that I enjoy. Um, that's I find that to be the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I mean, the world needs teachers who are inspired. And so it seems listening to you that Dragonfly, it's almost like you were made for Dragonfly, vice versa, just your philosophy and everything. But I want to ask you, I know you've had the experience to go on these great Earth expeditions. So I'll
Yeah.
ask the question people always ask me, which is like, what is your favorite Earth expedition?
Oh, that's the worst question.
I know there's no
Um,
good answer, but
there's no good answer to it. Wow, I mean, they each offer such, you can't go wrong. I mean, you can't go wrong. Um, my favorite, I guess I could be impartial and say Baja.
you have been there a lot, and that's how it all started, and that's
I
how we
kind of
met. So
get
that
it.
is the proper answer, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're I mean, out of all of it, I do probably have to say Baja. I mean, there's something magical about being in the Galapagos, and there's something magical about being in, Namibia, and being out with, these amazing animals out in the plains and in Etosha alone. But the moment that stands out for me the most out of every experience is in Baja with getting in the water with a whale shark. You
Hmm.
know, it was the moment where I remember getting in the water being a little murky, and then all of a sudden this massive animal comes out of the abyss and is right in front of me and stops and filter feeds, and it was just the moment. And I have that GoPro recording of and with the audio on it, which is great. And I actually think the favorite part of it is the audio of of being able to listen to my brain shut off, of breathing just go totally erratic. Like there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm breathing. I'm sucking in water, and it's just this most magical moment. Um, and it's incredible. And having been there and seeing people have that first experience with a whale shark, I mean, I don't think out of and not even just the whale shark, just being in the desert at night alone, out in the desert looking at the Milky Way,
Yeah.
it's is incredible in itself. But you know, with that idea of being at the institute or being out in that water and seeing that those incredible animals for the first time up close and personal,
Right.
I don't think I have seen anyone come out of the water that has their mind is just not is just not blown. And kind of when I see people experience that now, when I'm out there working with VSI or CLL in the Baja expedition, is one of the things I tell them is, all right, take a minute, try to slow down your breathing and relax and make eye contact with that animal. And I've had people who have been on these trips or been on these expeditions where, rough and tumble, and then this is not them. They've gotten dragged along and they do it, and they sit there and make eye contact, and they come out of the water and they're just full on tears and smiles, and they're just
Yeah.
and from there on they're just like, wow, I just don't look at everything the same. So yeah, I would have to say Baja. It's gotta be,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
and I dodge the question usually as well, just because the sense of awe. I mean, there's so many unique experiences, but that one with the whale sharks is so emblematic, and it's
Yeah.
also the bioluminescence down there, which I forget if the year we were down there together, if we had a lot, but several
Mhm.
years, it's just like glowing on your body when you go out for a night swim and a night snorkel together.
Yeah.
Um, it's truly magical. It really is.
It
Um,
really is. Yeah.
so, and I know, everyone was kind of inspired, and you're not the only one that's gotten tattoos from their Earth expeditions experiences. I feel like I
Yeah.
notice more and more of our students and participants doing this. But you definitely have gotten pretty elaborate tattoos, I think, from each of your
Yeah.
locations.
From each of the locations, yeah. So all the way up the arm, I decided when I got accepted into the program, I started a sleeve up my arm on my master's. So yeah, it's all done in watercolors by a certain artist, and I said, hey, I've got this idea. I'm starting this master's program. We're going to these different locations, or we're doing this conservation work, and we're learning about all these species in different parts of the world. And I kind of want to get that journey, up and through my arm, throughout across the years. And at first, he wasn't really into it. He's like, I don't know if I want my art to represent, this kind of patchy work and then blend it together. I don't know. But then kind of explain the idea a little bit more to him, and he kind of bought in. So I've got, I started on my lower arm with this idea of home in this kind of cedar swampy area. Some of my favorite, you know, environments that I grew up really loving and spending time in. And then I got when I went to Bahia. I started with my first one was a whale shark, and I've got this whale shark, but everything is done very specific. It's kind of the vision of the journey. So the whale shark is this kind of sketched out watercolor. It's kind of very a little abstract um, art of this whale shark going up my arm, coming out of the vision of the Bay Cedar Swamp of where kind of my environmental journey started. And then after going to Namibia, I got a cheetah. I had a cheetah under a shepherd tree. We really talked about the value of the shepherd trees and the cultural significance of of the shepherd trees um, out in Namibia. And so I have this cheetah, and this cheetah is now a little bit more detailed. So it's a little bit finer detail, stronger lines, stronger color, not abstract. I'm really kind of signifies a cheetah, and I've got my shepherd tree of, you sit underneath that and watch over everything. And it's kind of, my idea of I'm taking everything in. And then I finished up in the Galapagos. So I have this beautiful marine iguana and frigate birds in a mangrove on my inner arm. And how that was done was the finest detail possible. So it's literally all single needlework.
Oh,
It's
wow.
hours and hours of single needlework to get the finest detail um, in in this marine iguana. And then it's kind of all tied in together with all these abstract watercolors, and we blended in a piece that I already had on my shoulder. I've got a tree of life, but the center trunk is a DNA helix. So everything kind of tied together up into the tree of life, and what keeps us all together. Yeah, so it kind of goes up all the way up, um and I look at it as that's my journey. That's my master's, and that's always with me. And um yeah, it's something that I'm proud of. And being the first person in my whole family to complete a master's degree and have this higher education was it really personal to me. And it's just a proud moment for me. And it's I get to wear it every single day. I have this thing that just reminds me of this accomplishment. And yeah, it just it keeps me happy and makes me smile um every single
Yeah.
time I see it. Yeah.
I wonder at this point, I love all that so much, and it is the Masters such a great accomplishment for sure, and so cool of you to like have this very symbolic and important touchstone all the way back to your origins, all the way through. And I sometimes wonder how many people in Dragonfly have gotten tattoos inspired by Earth expeditions. I've been teaching the India course, and there were a few students who went out on one of the last days and I think they were looking for like someone to do like a peacock or something like that.
Mm,
Um, so it's definitely something people feel as this moment to like really connect it and have it set in for them.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I think you might have the record for the most extensive coverage at this point.
Yeah, I'm pretty covered.
One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, you and I kind of bonded a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons and
Yeah.
fantasy, and we talked about Skyrim as a video game. And I'm just curious, like, how do you feel that all connects at all to your sort of love of biology and the environment? Do you think there's connections there for you?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's definitely got to be I think there always should be this creative element to science.
Mhm.
We like to, we like to say, oh, good science is, it's black and white, and this is what it is. But I think there's got to be this creative, excited element to it, and this you're keeping that I wonder and that amazement at it, and um, kind of keeping sharp. And so as someone who plays D&D and not only just plays, but also runs the campaigns, and you got to be sharp. You've got to be ready to go. Um, you gotta, handle any situation and in any which way, and I like it because there's not one, there's not a single, there's not one right answer to a problem in D&D, right? There's not really one way to solve it. There could be a puzzle, but you could be the barbarian and just break down the door, right? Um, and I kind of think, yeah, there's got to be that creative element, and there's got to be that, fun part of it. And when you look at the games, and I grew up playing Legend of Zelda, and a whole part of that game is you're going into these different environments, and like, wow, look at all these different areas, and now I'm at the water, I'm in the mountains, I'm in the desert, and I'm in this forest, and it kind of creates this idea of like, wow, that's really kind of a neat environment. I want to go see that, or I really want to go do that. And then, um, yeah, you want to go play adventurer. I think that's really what it is you want to be that adventurer. You want to be that main character in the video game. And, at some point, I think with even with D&D, it's like, wow, it's gotten so intricate over the years of, this is the environment that my character is from, and they're from this region in a forest. And these are the different, if I played a ranger, I've definitely played a ranger.
That checks
and,
out.
I played rangers, I played druids.
I was thinking druid. Yep, that's the other one for sure.
But you go in there and you've got these, characters where it's, you have preferred terrain or preferred environments. And your environment and your terrain, and you get so excited about your character, and you're like, well, my character is from the forest, and this is what this forest is like. And then, yeah, at some point, ultimately, you want to channel your character and you go into a forest. And it's and I'm gonna go try my animal handling skills and see if I ideally don't crit fail. um, and I really think, yeah, definitely, there's some, I think there's definitely some level to it where you can play a game, and then you can really go play the game, really go be that adventurer. And I've actually even run a couple campaigns where it's, based off of the environment, and how many campaigns out there are, you got to go save the animal, or you got to go save this area. And,
Hmm.
it's, yeah, you can play real life D&D, and I actually integrate it into my classroom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have two D20s in my classroom, and my students know they can roll for things. So they can say, if there's if there's a quiz, and they've got, it's a 20-minute quiz. It's like, can we have 5 more minutes? And I'll say, yeah, I'm feeling good today. Roll for persuasion. What do you got? And I'll let them roll for it. So,
That's
and
right.
see what they get, and I'll play campaigns with the kids at school, and we've actually done a whole thing in curriculum with some of the creative writing class. There were a couple of DMs that work at the school,
Hmm.
and the person who taught the creative writing class knew that we ran campaigns, and they'd say, hey, would you be willing to run mini campaigns during creative writing to show kids, what D&D is, and what types of creative writing can be out there. And so we literally like came in, and we broke the kids into these little small groups, and we ran little tiny campaigns of let's show them how to be creative.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
it's a great way of unlocking creativity in a safe place and just
yeah,
trying different ideas, right? Like, what if your character, climbs out the window or scales this wall and you roll, and it's sort of a safe way of practicing in an imaginary sense what you might actually do when you go swim with that whale shark in real life,
Yeah.
later on. And I wonder if it also taps into biophilia in us. Mhm.
For sure. I definitely think that does tap into that whole biophilia idea. That's actually a paper I have my students write on. That's actually interesting enough that you bring up biophilia. It's literally the first paper I have my students write during the year, and it's the last paper that I have them write.
Nice. I feel like we would need like a podcast of you giving like a tour of your classroom as well at some point, like a video of it. Because I just imagine this it just sounds so exciting. It sounds so much like a lot of fun. I mean,
Thank you.
uh so yeah, I think we're kind of just about at time, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add before we start to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I credit, the Dragonfly experience. It was, like I said, when I found that program through the conservation park, we were invited in to do this, teachers in conservation, and through the terrapin work um, that we were doing, we were invited in and kind of saw what they were doing. And I had been looking for a grad school for years, and I just couldn't find the right thing, couldn't find the right program, and got into this. And someone said, "Well, this is Dragonfly." And I was a former Dragonfly student,
Mm,
and they said like, "Hey, this is the program, where we got all these ideas from." And I was like, "Well, this sounds, right up my alley." And I was like, "This seems what I'm all about." And I had that life-changing experience, and I'm glad that fate brought me to Dragonfly, and it's been this incredible force ever since. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I mean, it's what we hope, and and I mean, ultimately, the beginnings of the program with, children and the magazine for children, Dragonfly magazine, and
Yeah.
the whole idea of children's voice and inquiry and celebrating that. And so it just seems like, yeah, you're doing all that. And then you're also tied to these Earth expeditions now through your role as a community learning leader, which is incredible. And I think you're also with Sea to Stars, right? With
Yeah, I'm with Vermilion. So I was just coordinator for the Stars to Sea
Stars to
program.
Sea. Yep.
Yeah, so I was a lead for the program for 2 years, and then moved on to program coordinator. And now Megan down there at VSI has a slightly more in-depth role for me, or I'm going to be living down at the station for the summer. So I'll be there with Earth Expeditions again this year, and then I'll be there through the summer for any and all programs that come in, and helping to run those, and assisting with the interns and helping them through their data and how to run their projects. And yeah, I'm kind of going to be all hands in. So yeah.
Awesome. The adventure continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining and sharing all these experiences.
Yeah, happy to chat.
Hi there, folks. Just one more thing before you head on out. If you have a moment, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would love to hear in what ways you are finding this podcast useful, how you listen, what you would like to hear more of, less of, etc. Please feel free to send me any and all feedback, any ideas for guests, etc. to Kevin Madison at my email, which is mattiskc@miamioh.edu. That's spelled MATTESKC @miamioh.edu. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day.